looked at your ID card and look at your Liberty Pass, and I radioed your ship and told them where you was. So, oh, thanks, that helped a little. So he went down to the chow hall and got some breakfast, and I took one of their boats and went back to the fleet landing, our base landing, and then the first boat that came in at 8 o'clock from our ship, it emptied out, and then I climbed aboard, and I was the only one. The coxswain, he gave me a funny look, and he knew what was happening. He knew I was AWOL. He brought me back, and this, after Brow had to go up the ladder from the water, and the officer of the deck, he was the ensign, and he was a junior officer of the deck, and he says, "Oh, back already?" He says, "Your Liberty was kind of short." He says, and I says, "Well, yes and no, and you have to surrender your Liberty Pass when you get to the after Brow. And there's a green one and a red one, port and starboard." And he looked at that and he says, "That's funny, I thought it was starboard Liberty." I says, "Well, yeah." Then he knew what this clicked, I guess, and he knew what was going on, so he wrote me up, and I had to go see the executive officer and exec's mass, and it was kind of like a screening mass, and they let me go with a warning. And the next time I had to go to the exec's mass, I was in dock in the port, and we was assigned to side cleaners. We was chipping the outside of the paint down in the docks, and I had this sailor hat turned inside out and pulled down like that. And we were going off and on, and when you're in a working party, you don't have to salute going off and on. And I considered myself a working party, so I went aboard and got some paint and took it down there. I didn't salute, and he wrote me up for that. And went to the exec again, so he let me have a stern warning. And third time I was in Virginia. I was hitchhiking, got picked up by the SPs. They didn't take me in or anything, pull my Liberty, but they wrote me up and sent the chit back to the ship. And that exec saw me again. He says, "Son, you're heading for a dishonorable discharge." And I put on the scared seaman look. And, "Yes, sir, yes, sir."
You know, when I was on the New Orleans, when I went in the Navy, see, I had a appendicitis operation while I lived with Uncle Frederick, and he paid for it. It cost him $125.
Wow.
Well, I never made any restitution. So he wrote a letter. He found out where I was, and he wrote a letter to my executive officer. His name was Commander I.C. Sowell, who later went to taught the War College in Annapolis, and before the war. And I had to go see the exec officer. I went in there, and he said, "I have a letter from your uncle." He said, "You owe him $125. I said, "Yes, that's from the operation I had when I was living with him." He says, "Don't you think you ought to repay that?" I said, "Sure." I'd never thought about it. Well, he says, "How about making out a
Allotment.
allotment?" So we made out an allotment. My God, you thought, after that episode, I thought that guy was my father. You know, that New Orleans was a big ship. There was a lot of men on there. It'd take you a long time to make a tour of that ship, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, he'd meet up with me. And one time I was trying to grow a mustache, and he says, "Son, I want you to shave that off. You're too young for that." You know, and then he made me go. He says we had our skipper's name was Captain Beauregard. We called him, crew members called him Flannelfoot because he had trouble walking. And he says, "I want you to go to the library and looked up our captain's history and the buoy guard history in the library. So I went to the library and I found out General Beauregard was the first guy that shot the first cannonball ordered the first cannonball fired at Fort Sumter that started the Civil War.
Oh, I remember the name.
Beauregard.
I didn't know that was synonymous with that.
So I guess that was his grandfather, I suppose. He was an old captain then. I think he retired right away, not long after. But, well, we're getting away from our dialogue here, aren't we?
Yeah, let's shut it
we
down. I
got,
think of a few more things to say. We lived on Vashon Island, and there's two Marys. There's a Big Mary and a Little Mary. And Big Mary was Bill's wife, and Little Mary was Little Mary. Anyhow, so we distinguished the difference between them. We called Big Mary and Little Mary. So, geez, it seemed like every damn day that Mary, she'd take over, and Mom would go and visit Frank, and Mary would take over, and she'd get Jim and I. God, that gal, she was cruel and inhumane. She would make Jim and I scrub those damn floors. We had a kitchen that was probably 20 by 20.
Oh, wait a minute, that was Ann that made you scrub the kitchen.
You tell it your way and I'll tell it my way. And then we get through with that, we'd go to do the dining room, and then the living room. We would clean house, and she thought it was funny. And I didn't think it was so damn funny. And then Bill would come home and they would talk about it, and Bill, he thought it was funny too. And that was the only way that Mom could, I think I'd rather work under Mom. And that Mary's just relentless. And Jim and we'd sneak out and get a smoke. We'd talk about her. Say, what in the hell is the matter with her? And Jim says, well, I ain't taking any more of this shit. And I said, oh? And so Jim got back there and he stuck up to her. And he says, my God, it was a living room. This living room floor is so clean you could eat off, but Mary took him up on that. She got a plate, she put his lunch on it and put him right down the floor, then made him eat off the floor. Jim never stuck up to her no more. He didn't dare tread on her tracks. And we used to, Dad would have his coveralls hanging up in the closet, and he'd leave that PA in there in his coveralls, and Evelyn and I and Jim would be snitching the PA out of his pockets, and we didn't think he knew, but he knew all the time. And one time we were smoking a cigarette, and the damn thing flared up on us. Pa would take match heads and mix them in with his PA. I guess we hit one of those match heads, and that damn thing fired up on us. I could just see him laughing about it. And this is one you ought to ask Barbara about. We'd send Barbara out foraging for snipes, and she didn't smoke, but she'd have this apron. She'd wear this apron, and she'd go along and pick up cigarettes. She'd have maybe 40, 50 cigarettes in this apron. Now she's going to say half full.
Where'd you get them? Alongside the road?
Alongside the road.
Shooting snipes again.
And she'd dump them all out. We'd sort out the biggest ones and start smoking those at first, and then we'd get to the littler ones. But we didn't care if anybody was. We didn't care if it was a black person or an Indian or who. Sometimes she would get them when they were still lit, and she'd put them out. And we'd try to make her select the ones that were not too brown from the rain, and they'd dry out again because they were real strong. We had her coached to how to pick up the best ones and everything. She wasn't ashamed at all. Just go down and pick them up like she's picking berries. And then Mary went someplace. I guess I don't know where the hell she went. I guess maybe Bill came back and they went off someplace. But then Ann came in. God, I thought Mary was bad. Them two must have had they must have had a conference or something. Now Dave does this and Jim does that. Now this is what I had him do. God, she took over the reins, and you could just see her like this, like you just see that which program where it Bewitched? She was like that the mother-in-law. Ah, dang, boy, she was really bad. She was worse than Mary ever was. And we was thinking, boy, I wish Mary would come back. That damn Ann, she was. She says, well, I know what Mary done, and you ain't getting away with that with me. And boy, she would lay the law down on us. And what the hell? We couldn't do nothing. We couldn't except run away from home. We'd have to come back when we're hungry. But we couldn't go any place because it was an island.
Oh.
That's all I got to say about Vashon.
Oh no, you haven't begun to tell about Vashon. Your mother used to grow peas, telephone peas.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, she had a garden out there. They called it a victory garden during the war. And she used to have rows of peas and corn and all that stuff. And one day Tony, we had a big white horse. And Tony had this horse and we had a dog. I think it was a lady, but I'm not sure. And he had this big hay rake. And it was a kind of pull a big thing in the old hay rake. It had tongs on it. It would let down and back and rake the hay, and then you'd pull the thing up and it let in the row there. So he had this horse, and he had it all harnessed up, and he was going down to the pasture to rake some hay. And lady, she started running along barking at the horse, and that horse bolted. And it bolted such a jerk that Tony fell off that little iron seat. And the wheel of the hay rake ran right over his chest. And there goes the horse, it just hauling ass up at the towards the road. And between where the horse took off and the road was the victory garden. My mom was out there with a calendar, and she was picking peas. And she saw that damn horse coming with that hay rake bouncing around. The more that thing bounced around, the more it scared the horse, and it just tried to run away from that hay rake. And it was towing it and didn't know it. And so that horse went right up that row of peas, took both rows out. My mom threw that calendar up, and she knew she was dead if she didn't get out of there. And she took off. That horse just wiped them out, and it was post with a string and wire went around the wheels, and it was bouncing down. And she got on the highway, and it was started going down the highway. And there was a guy about, they call it the crossroads down there, where the telephone company wasn't. He was down below picking some berries, and he come out and waved his arms, and the horses stopped finally. His old mouth was foaming, and his old eyes were flashing back and forth. I think it had the blinders on, I'm not sure, but it was flashing. He knew that hay rake. Well, the hay rake come off in the meantime, and went out in some field to hit a telephone pole, I think, or something. And the horses, all the traces and everything were dragging them out behind it. And so that horse, Jim and I used to get on that horse, and we never get that son of a bitch to gallop. We'd always trot, and we'd go out and there'd some dirt roads, and we'd go out on these it'd trot. It'd jar every bone in our body. And then coming home, you knew the way home, it would gallop like hell. It wanted to get home, so we'd get off and slap it in the butt, and it would take off down the barn, go through the barn and out to the pasture, And one day, that horse got sick, and there's a lady that lived down the road. She had a beautiful yard, immaculate, and I forgot what her name was, but this horse got sick, and I heard Dad say something about you got to keep it walking or something, and they tried to walk the horse, and they say if it lays down it's going to die or something. So during the night this horse got sick, and I guess it took off, and it went down the road and laid down this lady's lawn and died right on her lawn. They had to get a horse wagon and meat wagon and haul it off. I remember we had I think it was about 20 acres of currants there, and I think about 7 acres of loganberries.
Yeah, 9 acres of loganberries. And
9 acres? Okay.
The farm was only 22 acres.
Was
there
22?
wasn't that many currants.
Oh, okay. 22 acres? Okay. Well, there was I guess there must have been more loganberries, because there's 2 fields of loganberries. There was one big field of currants. We didn't pick too many currants. They usually had the Indians clean those out. But we'd pick berries. I think she had some kind of a deal set up with Tony Hall or somebody.
Yeah, Tony Hall bought the place. He wanted to have, see, everything was rationing. Butter was rationed.
Yeah.
He wanted eggs and meat. He wanted chickens and meat.
And butter,
For meat
cream,
and,
milk.
And
we were kind of farming it, weren't we?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it was worked on a
Sharecropper's deal.
share deal.
Mm.
And you didn't tell about why you don't like peas.
Well, I don't mind them now. Oh yeah, well my mom would can, and
I remember that very well. I only told the story, but you tell your version of it.
my version. Well, my version's the truth.
I think you was the one that instigated it, wasn't it?
No, that's not the truth.
Jim liked the pop better than you did.
That wasn't the truth. We had like a picnic table, sort of like a deck, out in back that Dad built, and he built a big picnic table out there. Mom canned a bunch of peas. I think there must have been.
I think there's 12 quarts.
No, there's more than that. It seemed like maybe about 20. After we ate them all, it seemed like about 40, but I think it's probably about 20. And I'm not sure what kind of implement we had. I thought it was a fork. It might have been a knife. But Jim says, "Hey, listen to this, Dave." He went, "Pew," and the vacuum was in there, let loose, and it would sound like a funny noise. Pew! And so we ran around, him and I both, popping these lids, sticking these lids, and listen to hear that noise. I think we done every one of them. I don't know what the hell made us do that. We were going to get hell. We just couldn't hide those things. Mom got so pissed, she said, "We're not going to waste them. And we had peas for morning, noon, and night. We ate peas for breakfast. We had peas about every way you could do it. Cream peas on toast, cream tuna with peas, and I never knew she could make peas so many different ways. She didn't waste them. And the only one was exempt was Mary, because she was boarding there and she didn't have to eat peas all the time. And so we had to eat all those peas till they were all gone. That was our punishment. I think that was almost as bad as drinking tobacco. Eating those peas.
There's some members of some of your kids don't.
I couldn't eat another pea, and then I finally got used to it. The taste got coming back, I guess, but I don't mind.
Some of them can't eat peas to this day.
Maybe Jim is one of those. I got sick and tired of them then. I remember we had about 200 chickens, and we discovered that chickens like eggs. They really like eggs. And we would throw an egg out in the yard, and the chickens would run out there and they'd peck at the yolk and everything. And Jesus, Jim and I got an egg throwing contest once, and I don't know how many dozens we threw out there that chicken just went nuts. Did you ever see a chicken get a worm or a bug or something? They'll pick it and they won't swallow it. They'll start running with it. And as soon as they start running, the other ones will see them running. They just know there's something good, and they'll pick it away from them. And then they'll take off, and just like a bunch of seagulls,
Yeah.
And instead of eating it down, chickens are dumb. They'll just keep on going. Did you ever hear chickens with contact lenses on?
That's to keep them from seeing blood.
Yeah. Yeah, they put red contact lenses on.
Because
you didn't know that, did you? You think we're
well,
driving?
that's to keep them from seeing blood because
Everything looks red to them, because when a chicken, if they get a little disease and they have their pin feathers come out and sometimes they have blood, then the chickens are cannibalistic. They'll peck on them until they're dead. And in order to stop this, they'll put little contact lenses on them so they'll see everything will be red. That's true.
yeah, I know.
Well, that's about all I can think of that I can lie about. So,
Well, now you can start telling the truth.
so maybe we can wrap this up.
Well, you covered everything I know about you.
Well, we could probably come up with some more stories.
Who built the fire in the house? Who started the fire in the